Welcome to Revenza Tales, where betrayal and fierce comebacks fuel your passion. Smash subscribe, ring the bell, and pass it on to friends who battle for their truth. Picture dreaming of liberty, only to be asked by your family and first love to erase your future. What would you do to get it back? Grasp tight for a story of rebellion, heartbreak, and unbreakable determination. My name is Francis, and living in my parents' home in our little Ohio town was living under a magnifying glass. Each movement observed, each blunder critiqued. My parents were more concerned about what the neighbors would whisper at church than what went on beneath their roof. My father, a high school principal with a creased brow, operated our home like a classroom. All instruction, no margin for error. My mom wasn't much different, fussing over the hem of my skirt or my too loud laugh. What will people think? She'd mutter, her voice sharp with worry. My older sister, Chloe, was their golden child. Acing tests, volunteering at the community center, never a toe out of line. Me. I was the wildfire they couldn't tame. I'd slouch at the dinner table just to see how long it'd take Dad to snap. Francis, sit up straight. A lady doesn't slouch. I'd roll my eyes, sit up straight for a moment, and then slouch back down when he turned away. It wasn't rebellion. Survival. Their rules were shackles, and I was constantly seeking to escape. I envisioned studying marketing, relocating to a large city, living a life where I could breathe. But in that house, dreams like that were secrets you concealed. I was 17 when I met Paul, a 20-year-old sophomore in college with a crooked grin. He had this ability to make me feel like I was the only one in the room. He was everything my parents would despise: relaxed, charming, from outside their sanctioned social group. We kept it hushed, sneaking out late to meet at the old park by the river, willows concealing us from curious eyes. For the first time I was living for me. I'd find myself lying in bed, imagining us in a small apartment, me in college, him rooting me on. It was silly, but it was mine. A few months into my 19th birthday, things changed. I began to wake up feeling nauseous, attributing it to exam stress or terrible diner food. But I knew something was wrong, deep down. One morning, I snuck into the bathroom of the gas station on my way to school with a pregnancy test I'd purchased in shaking hands. The fluorescent light hummed as I stood there, heart thudding so hard I could hardly think. Then there it was, 2 pink lines. Positive. I took 5 more that week, stashing them in my backpack like contraband. Each one told the same thing. I was pregnant. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, my head full of questions. How would I get through school? What was Paul going to say? What would happen to my parents? I stayed away from Paul for days, avoiding his calls until I couldn't any longer. We sat at our river place, the air thick with Ohio summer humidity, fireflies flashing in the evening. He smiled when he saw me, but his expression dropped as he saw my hands fisted together. Francis, what is it? He reached out to me, questioning. I stood back, arms around myself. I'm pregnant, I blurted, the words spilling out as if they'd been choking me. The silence was crushing. Paul's face flickered. Shock, fear, then something colder. Are you certain? He asked, voice tense. I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. 6 tests, all positive. He paced under the willows, running a hand through his hair. You have to get rid of it, Francis. An abortion's the only thing. We're too young. This will destroy everything. His words sting like a slap. This was Paul, the man I'd fantasized about, telling me to erase our baby as a mistake. Get out, I whispered, voice trembling with anger. Just leave. He didn't debate, striding away, leaving me standing under the willows, my world falling apart. Telling my parents was worse. I waited until after dinner, Dad sitting in his armchair with the newspaper, Mom wiping down the kitchen counter, Chloe hovering nearby, aware of trouble. My palms were sweaty, my voice hardly level. I have to tell you something, I told him. Dad set down his paper, his eyes narrowing. What is it, Francis? I gulped. I'm pregnant. The room erupted, Dad's face red, yelling about shame and failure. Mom cried, sobbing about the neighbors and church. Chloe gazed, lips twisted with disgust. You'll get an abortion, Dad told me, once he'd cooled enough to talk. We'll get a clinic. No one has to know about this nonsense. I was furious, wanting to scream, to make them understand it wasn't that easy. Their fury was a barrier I couldn't penetrate. A few days passed, and I sat in a frigid doctor's office, Mom and Chloe standing on either side of me like guards. The doctor, a woman with compassionate eyes, scanned my chart and furrowed her brow. "Francis," she said gently, "due to your medical history, an abortion may never allow you to have children again." Her words hit me like a punch. Never have children again. I glanced at Mom, looking for softness, but her expression was stone. Chloe breathed heavily, as if I was an imposition. Something snapped in that moment. "No," I said, voice firm for the first time. "I'm keeping the baby." Mom gasped. Chloe rolled her eyes, but I didn't care. I wasn't letting them control my life any longer. The ride home was quiet, the tension so thick in the air, the Ohio fields a blur going by. We went inside, Dad standing there, arms folded. "Well?" he asked, brusque. "She said no," Mom explained, her voice heavy with frustration. Dad's face contorted, his tone as cold as ice. "Pack up your belongings and leave." I remained still, pumping heart, but flames sparked within me. They thought they could do this to me, take away my choice. They were mistaken. This was just the start of my struggle. "You're not our daughter anymore. We won't have you shaming this family." Mom nodded, her eyes hard. Chloe didn't even glance at me. I ran to my room, sobbing, and jammed clothes into a duffel bag. As I hit the door, Dad's words caught me. "Don't come back. You're dead to us." The door slammed shut behind me, resounding like a gunshot. I was 19, pregnant, and alone. Stranded on the sidewalk outside my parents' house, my duffel bag on the ground beside me, the Ohio night clung hot and wet, crickets chirping as if nothing was different. Everything was different. Panic gripped my chest. I had no place to go, no idea. Then I remembered Aunt Maggie. She and Uncle Ray lived hours away in Columbus, operating a tiny bakery, the oddballs of our family. They never liked my parents' fixation on looks. I called her number, hands trembling so hard I could hardly hold the receiver. "Francis, darling, what is it?" Aunt Maggie's voice was like a warm hug, a comfort through the phone. I folded, crying as I explained it all. Paul, the pregnancy, my parents throwing me out. There was a silence that stretched on, and I prepared to be rejected. "Where are you at the moment?" she asked. "Outside their place," I replied, little folded voice. "Stay there. We're on our way to pick you up." I slumped onto the curb, relief tangling with fear. What was I supposed to do with the baby? How would I make it? The ride to Columbus seemed interminable, headlights slicing through dark Ohio fields. Uncle Ray was driving, Aunt Maggie turning around to look back at me. Their place was a small brick bungalow, front porch jammed with potted plants. Inside, it smelled of fresh bread and cinnamon, a stark contrast to my parents' sterile home. Aunt Maggie wrapped me in a quilt, handed me a mug of tea. "You're safe here," she said, brushing hair from my face. Uncle Ray carried my bag to a spare room, a tiny space with a twin bed and faded quilt. "It's not much," he said, setting the bag down. "But it's yours." I looked around, throat tight. "It's perfect," I whispered. The following weeks were a blur. Aunt Maggie took me to doctor's visits, checking that I was well, the baby fine. She'd talk about her bakery, her patrons, anything to put me at ease. Uncle Ray, more reserved but nice, snuck me extra pancakes for breakfast, winking as if it was a secret. One evening, at their scratched wooden table, Aunt Maggie cleared her throat. "We've been thinking," she said, looking at Uncle Ray. "We'd like to assist you in continuing with school." I blinked, perplexed. "What are you talking about?" Uncle Ray leaned in, hands together. "We've accumulated some cash over the years. Never had children of our own. We'd like to spend it putting you through college." I was stunned, fork suspended mid-air. College was a dream I'd abandoned the second those two pink lines showed up. "I don't know what to say," I babbled. Aunt Maggie smiled, eyes creasing. "Say yes, Francis. We believe in you. This baby doesn't mean your dreams are crushed." I nodded, tears streaming down. For the first time since that gas station bathroom, I wasn't alone. I went to a Columbus community college, studying marketing like I always dreamed. It wasn't simple. Morning sickness struck with force, and I trudged to class feeling run over. To assist, I waited tables at a neighborhood diner, where Carla, the owner, welcomed me into her fold. She was a smart-mouthed woman with a ready grin. When I informed her that I was pregnant, She simply nodded. Been there, kid. I'll work around your schedule. Tips were subpar, but they allowed me to contribute toward groceries, establish a savings for the baby. As I grew bigger in the middle, so did my resolve. I'd lie awake, stomach rumpled with my hand, vowing the life inside I'd be enough. I'd make it work. The day Caleb was born, my heart almost exploded. Fear, joy, the whole package. Hours of labor, and I cradled him in my arms, his tiny fingers wrapping around mine. He was perfect, big curious eyes, a soft coo that made everything right. Aunt Maggie and Uncle Ray stood at the ready, smiling like they'd won the lottery. What's his name? Aunt Maggie spoke, voice gentle. Caleb, I replied, staring at him lying against my chest, sleeping. It means loyal, because no matter what anyone else says, I had made the right decision. Being a mom was chaos. Caleb's wails woke me in the middle of the night, and I'd stagger through diaper changes, then rush to class with formula on my shirt. The diner was my second home, juggling trays of coffee and burgers while memorizing marketing jargon. Carla was a lifesaver, allowing me to trade shifts when Caleb was sick with a fever or I had an exam. There were days when school, work, and being a mother weighed on me so heavily. But Caleb's smile or the notes from Aunt Maggie, "You've got this," kept me pushing forward. I graduated college on a warm afternoon, my cap sliding when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. Aunt Maggie and Uncle Ray had cheered louder than the crowd, Caleb waving from Uncle Ray's shoulders. At the bakery's graduation party, where there were balloons and homemade cupcakes, Carla took me aside. "Francis, I've got an offer," she said, eyes twinkling. "I need a new diner manager. You're the one I want." I laughed, stunned. "Me? I'm just a waitress." She shook her head. "You deal with grumpy customers, schedule staff, work a kid in school, that's manager material." The work was a game changer. Higher pay, regular hours, an opportunity to apply my marketing degree to increase the diner's business. Caleb and I got a small apartment close to the bakery, creating something real. That's where I met David, at one of Caleb's Little League games, where he swung at the pitches with more energy than finesse. David came with his son, Lucas, from the opposing team. We chatted, attracted to his gentle niceness, the way his eyes came alive talking about Lucas. "Single dad?" I asked, seeing him alone. He nodded, a shadow passing over his face. "Widow, really? Lucas's mom died when he was a baby." My heart hurt for him. "I'm sorry," I said. "Single mom," I added, sweeping my hand over Caleb. He smiled. "It's hard, but we get by." David and I went slow, both burned, him by loss, me by betrayal. On coffee dates and playground playdates, I loved him for his patience, his dad humor, the high-fiving Caleb after games. Caleb loved him, and Lucas, a reserved boy with his father's compassionate eyes, began addressing me as Miss Francis. A night in David's backyard, the boys running wild for fireflies, he took my hand. "Francis, I want us to be a family," he said, producing a plain ring. I agreed before he was done, my heart full. Our wedding was intimate. Aunt Maggie, Uncle Ray, a couple of friends, the boys. Caleb, beaming, bore the rings. Lucas stood holding my hand as we exchanged our vows. A year and some months later, Mia, our daughter, was born on a cool spring morning. Cradling her with David, Caleb, and Lucas standing around the hospital bed, I felt complete in a way I'd never dreamed. Blood didn't count. Lucas was just as much my son as Caleb and Mia. We were a family, crazy, loud, perfect. But one night, when Aunt Maggie was babysitting the kids, a news clip brought me to a standstill. There was my dad, grayer but unyielding, at a podium, the crawl reading, Councilman John campaigns for mayor. He espoused family values, voice as smooth as ever. Aunt Maggie's face scrunched up with rage. "Hypocrites," she growled. I turned to her, puzzled. "What are you saying?" She sighed, her eyes full. "There's something that I have to tell you, Francis." She told me a secret that rocked me to my foundations. My parents had a son, Mark, who was born without legs, before Chloe and I were born. Ashamed of his disability, they abandoned him at the hospital, erasing him to maintain their perfect facade. I was ill. Shock, grief, pain for the brother I never knew. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. Aunt Maggie's eyes welled with tears. "I didn't want to hurt you any further after what they had done. That night I didn't sleep, David's arm around me, and I made up my mind. I needed to find Mark. With the help of David, we employed a private investigator. Weeks went by before we received a lead. Mark was alive in Chicago, a motivational speaker and writer, adopted by a good family. It was surreal encountering him. He wheeled towards me in his wheelchair, a warm smile on his face somehow familiar. I was stiff, heart racing, knowing that this was the beginning of something greater, a possibility to correct a mistake, to reveal my parents' falsehoods. I always knew I belonged to a family out there. Mark hugged me. I just never expected to find a sister. We talked for hours, sharing stories of our lives in his Chicago apartment. His wife, Anna, and their 2 kids welcomed me like I'd always been part of them. Mark became a regular in our lives, his laughter filling our Columbus home alongside Caleb, Lucas, and Mia. Years passed in a blur of milestones. Caleb starting college on a baseball scholarship. Lucas finding his passion for art, sketching cityscapes. Mia learning to read, her laughter ringing through our home. I was mindlessly scrolling through my phone one afternoon when I saw Chloe's post. Thrilled to share Paul and I are engaged, it stated, along with a picture of her smiling, arms slung over Paul, the same Paul who had left me pregnant and single. My anger and betrayal churned in my stomach. But I watched Caleb drawing at the kitchen table and felt a strength. I didn't require their sanction. My family, David, the children, Mark, Aunt Maggie, Uncle Ray, was sufficient. It was a quiet afternoon when I saw a news story catch my eye. My father, now a city councilor, in an interview on family values. I clicked out of curiosity in spite of myself. He talked smoothly. Then the interviewer asked him about his children. His expression softened, a well-rehearsed smile I recognized all too well. I have 1 daughter, Chloe, he replied. We had lost another child, a tragedy we bear with us each and every day. I stood there, anger seething. He'd thrown me out, erased me like Mark. Mark called days later. I'm doing a book signing in our hometown in a week, he said. It would mean the world to me if you attended. I agreed, a plan in mind. Stepping into the grand ballroom of the town's swankiest hotel felt like stepping into a memory. The room was abuzz with local dignitaries, businesspeople, members of the council. My dad out front, running for mayor, Mom and Chloe at his side. They didn't notice me as I slid into a back row, heart pounding. Mark rolled onto the stage, his presence dominating, people applauding. He talked about his book, his life, his disability. I was born without legs, he said, voice firm. My birth parents left me at the hospital, too embarrassed to keep me. The audience gasped. I saw my dad, his expression a politician's mask, blank but strained. Then Mark grinned, eyes locking with mine. But that's not all. My sister Frances, whom I found, is present today. Frances, come forward. The room hummed as I made my way to the stage, everyone's eyes fixed on me. My mother and father went white-faced, Chloe's mouth hanging open. They recognized what was to come. I grabbed the microphone, fingers steady though my heart pounded. Mom, Dad, don't go, I said as they moved away to leave, my voice ringing out. It's time for the truth. I informed the crowd of everything. How my parents left Mark behind for his disability. How they threw me out at 19, pregnant and single, in order to guard their reputation. When I defied an abortion that might have made me sterile, they denounced me as a shame, I declared, voice firm. They preach family values but have left 2 of their children behind. The room exploded. Gasps, cries, reporters writing. My dad cringed in his seat. Mom wept. Chloe gawked, immobile. I looked my dad in the eye, the man who dominated so loudly, now diminished and vulnerable. The tale ran like wildfire. Local news, then national, destroyed my dad's campaign. He quit in days, his career destroyed. The school where he taught severed connections. Chloe called once, voice full of venom. You've ruined us, she spat. You're dead to me. I hung up, her words sharp but unbreaking. Then Paul called, voice uncertain. Chloe and I can't have children, he said. We know about Caleb. Perhaps we could be a family. I laughed, bitter and free. You made your decision years ago, Paul. I have a family, and it's not you. I hung up, the burden of him lifted. One day later, Paul's mother, Diane, called. Is it true about Caleb? She asked, voice shaking. Do we have a grandson? They'd been informed that I'd had an abortion, deceived by Paul and my parents. I stalled, then consented to allow them to see Caleb. It was raw. Tears, hugs, years of lost moments. Caleb, with a generous heart, greeted them, his smile illuminating the space. Life fell into a new pace. Mark and his family as fixtures, their children playing with Caleb, Lucas, and Mia. Aunt Maggie and Uncle Ray fawned over all the children, their bakery like a second home. My parents and Chloe disappeared, relocating to get away from the scandal. I sympathized with them, yet I'd done what I had to do, spoken the truth. The aftermath wasn't only their demise. It was my ascension. I flourished as manager of the diner, leveraging my marketing background to fill the diner to capacity. Carla grinned at the figures, hailing me as her secret weapon. Our Columbus household hummed with activity. David barbecuing in the yard, Caleb teaching Mia how to swing a bat, Lucas drawing us all. Mark's visits introduced tales of his speaking tours, the laughter of his kids mingling with ours. One night, at a community gathering, I was invited to talk about resilience. Standing there on the stage, I surveyed my family. David's firm look, Caleb's beaming smile, Lucas's hesitant wave, Mia's laugh, Mark's nod. I shared my story. Not the suffering, but the resilience it created. I was 19, pregnant, tossed aside, I said. But I constructed a life, a family, a reality they could not claim. The audience applauded, others wiping away tears, and I felt complete. My parents' lies had attempted to shatter me, but they'd constructed me instead. I'd found Mark, regained my voice, and built a home where love, not judgment, was the law. Occasionally, I'd drive by the old river park, willows still bobbing, and recall the girl I'd once been, afraid, betrayed, but unbroken. That girl had fought for this life, for Caleb, for Mark, for all of us. I'd tell her quietly, "You did it." This story teaches us that truth is a more powerful weapon than betrayal. It can break deception and create a life where you get to decide your worth. Thanks for watching Revenza Tales, where comeback and victory stories are brought to life. Break that like button, post your comeback stories in the comments, and subscribe for more epic stories. Pass this along to friends who require a spark of courage, and I'll meet you in the next tale.